There is so much to discover in the world of today, but what about the people and places that existed before our time, such as in ancient Egypt and ancient Rome? Have you ever wondered if dragons really exist, or what a gladiator is? Stick around and find out the answers to all these burning questions and many more on Why, What, Where. When did dinosaurs walk the earth? Millions of years ago, well before humans existed, dinosaurs roamed our planet. Different kinds of these large prehistoric reptiles ranged in shape and size. Some dinosaurs walked on 2 legs, some walked on 4, and some could do either. No one really knows much about their colours and patterns, or how they sounded and behaved. But through studying their fossil remains, people called paleontologists can help us learn about the world of dinosaurs. Dinosaurs ruled the Earth for over 165 million years, but mysteriously died out or became extinct 65 million years ago. Scientists believe that an asteroid impact may have caused major changes to the climate and the dinosaurs couldn't adapt. Did you know that dinosaurs probably live on today as birds? Dinosaurs were reptiles, and most of them were hatched from eggs, just like birds. Today, all that's left of dinosaurs are fossils, and these have been found all over the world, perhaps even near where you live. This is a famous exhibition called Walking with Dinosaurs, and it tells the story of the creature's 160 million year reign, with lessons in studying dinosaurs, geology and evolution. This is a Brachiosaurus, and it is 56 feet from head to toe. Imagine getting that inside the exhibition space. One visitor said the show made it fun to learn about the different types of dinosaurs and their life and survival. In some reenactments, dinosaur mothers are seen protecting their young. In others, huge herbivores, plant-eating dinosaurs, and massive carnivores, meat-eating dinosaurs, go head-to-head, involving the audience in the action by lunging towards them or leaning in and blinking their giant, lifelike eyes. 11-year-old Dylan Delaney admitted to being scared when a Brachiosaurus came near him.
Brachiosaurus comes over and looks at you and stuff. It's just kind of freaks you out.
Puppeteers make the dinosaur robots seem so real. Some of the smaller creatures have human beings standing up inside them, their human legs operating the dino legs. Someone controls big movements like the spine, while another person controls the more delicate movements, like blinks of the eye or tilts of the head. No matter how they were being operated, everyone loved seeing the lifelike dinosaurs.
Well, we came to see Walking with the Dinosaurs, which was great. It was marvelous. Dinosaurs, superb.
Why do you like dinosaurs? Why does everyone like dinosaurs?
Because they're the biggest, animals alive. Well, dead now, but not in this show.
What is the name of the meat-eating dinosaur that starts with the letter T? The Tyrannosaurus Rex. Are dragons real? This is a tricky question to answer because some people believe that giant fire-breathing dragons once existed, but many others feel they're just works of fantasy. There has never been a confirmed case of giant dragon remains being found, but there are other types of ancient reptiles like this one that have been around for millions of years. These are actually called Komodo dragons, although they're not like the ones that you may have seen in picture books or at the movies. They don't breathe fire and they don't fly. Komodo dragons are the heaviest lizards on Earth. They have long, flat heads with rounded snouts, scaly skin, bowed legs and huge muscular tails. And their yellow tongue flicks in and out of their mouth all the time. They live on islands in Indonesia. And even though they've been around for millions of years, humans only found out about them 100 years ago. They're really long lizards that can grow up to 10 feet, and they have very sharp claws and teeth. What makes the Komodo dragon so dangerous is that its mouth is filled with a poisonous bacteria caused by rotting food fragments that get stuck in its jagged or serrated teeth. If prey escapes its powerful grasp, it's sure to die within a few days from an infection in the bite wound. A Komodo dragon can eat as much as 80% of its own body weight in one go. This is the equivalent of you eating more than 3/4 of yourself at one time. These 4 baby dragons have just been born in a zoo in France. They can live till they're 30 years old in the wild and even longer in captivity. There are only about 3,000 to 5,000 Komodo dragons that exist in the world. This means they're an endangered species, and zoos try to protect them through careful breeding programs. Did you know that Komodo dragons use the tips of their tongues to smell, just like snakes do? What is a fossil? Do you know what a fossil is? Perhaps you've seen one before in a museum or an exhibition. Fossils are the remains left by plants or animals that lived a very long time ago, such as dinosaurs. The fossils may look just like the animal or plant did when they were alive, but now they've turned to stone. Fossils are made in various ways. For instance, an animal or plant's remains may get covered in mud and soil, and their cell walls may be replaced by minerals. It can take anywhere from 10,000 years to 5 million years to fossilise something. Fossils can be found practically anywhere, on top of mountains, underwater, in the desert or underground. They're often found when people are mining or doing construction work on roads. These paleontologists in Brazil have found fossil remains of a prehistoric crocodile that they say ruled the seas some 62 million years ago. The discovery shows these reptiles survived the extinction of dinosaurs and means that researchers can develop new theories about where these creatures came from. They believe that this creature is most likely to have come from Africa and then migrated to South America. The researchers managed to recover the crocodile's skull, jaw, front legs, spine and ribs, which showed them that this was a new type of species. You can collect fossils if you're interested. All you need to do is find out which store near you has fossils, or you can look on the internet or attend a fossil show. Did you know that seashells are the most common items that get fossilised? What is a woolly mammoth? Woolly mammoths don't exist anymore. They lived in the Ice Age about 10,000 years ago. Back then, almost all of the earth was covered in snow and ice. The woolly mammoths had long, thick, dark black hair to keep them warm and had curved tusks, large ears and a long nose, just like elephants. In fact, they're closely related to modern-day Indian elephants. Their tusks were used for protection against predators and for digging in the snow for grass and other food. These construction workers near Mexico City found the skeleton remains of a woolly mammoth when they were digging a ditch. The mammoth's remains are more than 10,000 years old. Amazing, huh? Did you know that we've only been able to learn about woolly mammoths from studying their fossil remains and our knowledge of modern elephants? Coming up, we find out where you can find the Colosseum and what a mummy is. What is a mummy? Have you ever seen a mummy before? No, not your mummy. A mummy is also a term used to describe a body of a person or an animal that's been preserved after death. Long, long ago, the ancient Egyptians believed it was very important that the human body was preserved after death. So they developed a method of keeping it protected, and this process was called mummification. It took 70 days to prepare the body. They would wash and purify the body and fill it with stuffing. Then, after 40 to 50 days, they would replace the stuffing with sawdust and wrap it in linen. The body was placed in a stone coffin called a sarcophagus. The mummy was then ready for its journey to the afterlife. The ancient Egyptians would leave the heart in the body because they thought the heart was the centre of intelligence and emotion. The poor Egyptians were buried in the sand. Only the rich were buried in a tomb. The tombs or pyramids were designed to store the body and protect it and its belongings. All these things would be taken into the afterlife. These archaeologists have found 11 mummies covered in gold in Egypt's western desert. The mummies are about 1,800 years old and they belong to one family and they're in good condition. Discovering these mummies means we can learn important new information about the ancient Egyptians' belief in the afterlife. Did you know that cats were the most common animals to be mummified in ancient Egypt? Where is the Colosseum? The Colosseum was a big amphitheatre and place where lots of people could sit and watch entertainment. This is where the ancient Romans gathered to watch gladiators fight battles with other men and wild animals. A Roman emperor named Vespasian in 69 AD built the Colosseum. He wanted everyone to know that he cared about them and so provided them with a place where they could get together and be entertained. It could seat 45,000 spectators, and if you didn't mind standing, then the Colosseum could hold up to 70,000 people. The ancient Romans were great builders, and many of their buildings still exist today, although as you can imagine, they've crumbled quite a bit. The Colosseum was built of concrete and marble and limestone. So if the ancient Romans built the Colosseum, where in the world do you think it is? That's right, Rome. You can visit it today, although most of it's in ruins now. The floor has even been taken away so you can see the rooms in the basement where the Romans kept the animals and their fighting equipment. In this exhibition, viewers can get a glimpse into what ancient Rome would have looked like. Visitors can take a look around virtual buildings that look just like the real thing. There were no cars in ancient Rome, but here cities and buildings are brought to life. Did you know that in early ancient Rome, kids did not go to school? Instead, the boys received education from their fathers at home. What is a gladiator? We now know that in ancient Rome, people would come to see people battle with wild animals and each other in the Colosseum. But what were these fighters called? They were called gladiators, and they would wear lots of armour and fight animals such as bulls or alligators, even lions or tigers. You can still see this type of fighting today in bullfights in some parts of Spain or Mexico. Gladiators were very strong men who trained very hard, and you can imagine how dangerous and physical the fights were. They wore armour to protect themselves, helmets over their head, and carried large swords. Every item gladiators wore was a protection, but also a handicap. The helmet reduced vision and made it difficult to breathe. The armour was very heavy. Often, gladiators' fights ended due to exhaustion. The ancient Roman people would arrive at the Colosseum early in the morning. Sometimes the shows were free, so everyone could get a seat, but if not, the poor people had to stand to watch the fights. The gladiators fought animals first, and then there was a break for lunch. The Romans would eat cheese, bread and vegetables, and there would be a half-time show where performers would sing and dance. Real gladiators don't exist anymore, but there are modern-day gladiators who like to dress up and practice sword fighting, just like in ancient Roman times. What is a chariot? The earliest and simplest type of carriage, pulled by horses that carried people around. When was the Bronze Age? The Bronze Age refers to a period in civilization where the metal that people used to make things out of was mainly bronze. Some bronze tools and weapons have survived, as well as objects like this bronze cup. Bronze is a traditional name for copper and tin. Armour, which gladiators wore, was often made out of bronze because it was very tough. Bronze came to Greece around 3000 BC, but because it was so expensive, it wasn't commonly used right away. Archaeologists can tell whether somebody was rich or poor because when they dig up graves, they often discover bronze tools and gold jewellery in them. Can you see why this shows them that there was a rich class? What are the three periods in our history that refer to tool-making technology? The Stone Age, the Bronze Age, the Iron Age. Coming up, we find out where the Hanging Gardens of Babylon are and who are the Argonauts. Who was Tutankhamun? Tutankhamun is perhaps the most famous ancient Egyptian king or pharaoh. He was born in Akhetaten, which was the capital city of Egypt in about the year 1346 BC. He became a pharaoh when he was only 9 years old and reigned during the 18th dynasty when the Egyptian empire was at its peak. He only lived until he was about 18 years old. In 1922, his tomb was discovered by a team of British archaeologists about 3,000 years after his death. The archaeologists found all sorts of amazing rich treasures inside the tomb, which helped them learn all about Tutankhamun and how powerful he was in ancient Egypt. Tutankhamun was buried in the Valley of the Kings, where the pyramids still stand today. Hundreds of objects were found inside the tomb, and they're now kept in the Egyptian Museum in Cairo. Some rare objects, however, are being displayed in a museum in Europe. Some of the objects on display have never been shown before outside of Cairo. No one knows how he died or who Tutankhamun's parents were, but there is a rumour that there is a mummy's curse on his tomb. Shortly after the discovery of the tomb, Lord Carnarvon, who helped fund the archaeologists' search for the tomb, died suddenly, and some superstitious people believed it was because of the mummy's curse. But the exhibition curator is not afraid of these ancient tales.
As you can see now, the people here in the museum, we have a very lot of people. In 14 days, 33,000 people. So the curse is in a very positive way. So I'm not afraid of the curse. I think it's something positive, and I think also that Tutankhamun will enjoy this.
Who discovered Tutankhamun's tomb? The English archaeologist Howard Carter. Where are the Hanging Gardens of Babylon? You may know that there are 7 ancient wonders of the world, which include the pyramids. The list also includes the Hanging Gardens of Babylon, which are found in Iraq. The son of the famous king of the Babylonian kingdom, King Hammurabi, built them. In some stories, it's said that the Hanging Gardens went hundreds of feet up in the air. But after archaeologists explored this, they proved that theory wrong. The gardens were full of trees and flowers and were built on a rooftop, so it looked like they just hung in mid-air. They were built for the wife of the king's son, who was feeling homesick and who loved mountainous surroundings. In this exhibition in Britain, artefacts from the ancient city of Babylon give visitors a rare insight into the past of Iraq. Sadly, all that remains of this famous site is red brick rubble. Several earthquakes destroyed the gardens after the 2nd century BCE. Where is Pompeii? We've learned about the Colosseum, which is found in Rome. Well, Pompeii was an ancient Roman city buried by a volcanic eruption. It wasn't until 2,000 years later that archaeologists uncovered the city. The people in ancient Pompeii did not have a chance to escape. The city was so quickly buried by volcanic ash. So when archaeologists dug out the city 2,000 years later, they actually found burnt bread still in the ovens that had been baking that day. Can you believe it? Archaeologists were able to learn a great deal from the ruins of this ancient city because it's been so well preserved. Nowadays, every year, thousands of tourists come to Italy to see the Roman city Pompeii and the ruins. Back in ancient Roman times, Roman citizens would have slaves called nomenclators who would whisper into their master's ear the names of the people visiting them in case they'd forgotten. Did you know that breakfast wasn't the most important meal of the day for the Romans? who hardly had anything for breakfast or lunch. Instead, dinner was the main meal of the day. What are Roman numerals? An ancient numbering system that we still use today. Who were the Argonauts? Have you ever heard the famous story of the Argonauts? It's one of the most famous tales of Greek mythology. A 50-oar galley Argo, otherwise known as a ship, sailed from the town Iolkos, which is now called Volos, with the hero Jason and his band of Argonauts. They were off to find the Golden Fleece in the ancient town of Colchis, which is now modern-day Georgia. These men are now trying to rebuild the ship that the Argonauts sailed on. They can't use electricity or machine tools because they didn't have these things back in ancient times. So it makes for an exhausting challenge. It's totally different from today. In those days, people used few tools and the most basic materials by the rules of what nature could give them. They used whole trees that were bent into shape. We don't do that today. Ships were without frames. There was no metal and there were no nails. Everything was with wood. Despite that, it's a strong and durable structure that will make it in the sea. Can you imagine trying to build a ship without being able to hammer it together with nails? How do you think they held the ship in place? They used wooden pegs and wedges that connected the planks, which were held together with resin. After the men finish building the ship, they're going to travel the same journey that the Argonauts did. They'll have to row for 10 to 15 hours a day, so they'll have to be pretty strong. Did you know that the Olympic Games started in ancient Greece? What is an artefact? Do you have special things that remind you of happy or sad times? Well, with time, these things can grow to have cultural and historical interest and are known as artefacts. Archaeologists dig for artefacts and often find some amazing things which teach us about different events that have happened in life and the way people have lived and behaved. The difference between a fossil and an artefact is that a fossil is of non-human origin. For example, an animal bone that's not been altered by humans in any way. An artefact is a product of human activity, including bone and shell tools and ornaments, ceramic vessels, and metal objects. Artefacts should be treated with respect and handled with care. Like these ones from the Titanic, which was the famous ship that sunk after hitting an iceberg in the Atlantic Ocean in 1912. Some of the items that are now on exhibit are banknotes and the ship's original bell. Whilst you can't go digging around in someone else's property looking for artefacts, you could explore your backyard or house and see what artefacts you can find. It is fun to study and learn about our history, which dates back millions of years. You can learn more about ancient civilizations and history by looking on the internet or going to the library and getting out some books. There are whole new worlds just waiting to be discovered.